G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and here we go with some more Daily Race C action. But before I explain, let's go into a track guide. So just before the second red tent on the left hand side, into turn 1 there, and getting through there nicely. Cut turn 2, turn 3 is flat out, half on the curb, it keeps pulling the car around the corner. Lovely. Heading down the Rita Aposta, we're going to be looking on the right hand side for the 100 meter board just after it. We're on soft tyres, so we can go just after. Third gear through this corner, early up shift to fourth, fifth through turn 5, and heading up the hill towards Ferradura, turn 6 and 7, just before the 50 metre board break, and turn in down into fourth, keep it wide, and then come back for the apex of turn 7. Look on the left hand side, just before the tyre mark that goes onto the curb for turn 8, turn 9, just a dab of brake, keep it nice and tight, and punch it out towards the exit. Heading up through turn 10, just on the start of the curb on the right hand side, late apex, as you can see there, try and get a lot of rotation on the car. Turn 11, no brake, just feather the throttle a little bit. I go for a early up shift to 5th, and just before a particular green patch on the right hand side, just before the 50 metre board. And that is a lap of Interlagos. So I know we jumped into that quite quickly, but this combination runs on from my previous video. I didn't show a qualifying lap in the previous video, which is why I've done it here. I've also only got the one race in today's video, completely unedited, as the whole race was absolutely amazing. You can see a 1:29.7 is my qualifying time there. If you watched my previous video, you'd know that I had an absolute disaster around this race here. I did two. The first one was an absolute penalty showcase. If you want a penalty museum, just watch the first race of my previous video. The second race in that video was actually a lot better. I managed to recover my ratings a bit. I'm back up to SS, and this was the race that came after. I'm up against PAL97. I've raced him a couple of times before. Absolute pleasure to race against. I've literally... every time I come up against PAL, it's just an amazing race. I don't have to worry about getting driven off or punted off or rammed off. He gives room and races smart. It's lovely to see. And when I see PAL, I'm like, thank goodness I can actually race properly. So let's do that already. You can see we've pulled away as a pair already out of slipstream of 3rd place. PAL is driving the Porsche. I'm not quite sure how solid that car is around here. It's not one that I've ever seen much driven around this circuit. It's however a very balanced circuit. This was actually the racetrack that Polyphony Digital used, or one of them. It was a test track at some point, whether that's still in effect or not, who knows, but at some point it was used for the balancing of the cars in the class, in Group 3 at least. So all of the Group 3 cars should be pretty much identical around this track here, as it was the track that was used to balance out the cars. It's got a very twisty middle handling sector, and then power sections in sectors 1 and 3, I think. It's a 3-sector circuit? Who knows? Might be 4. I can't quite make out. I think it's a 3-sector circuit. But yeah, we're onto one of the power sections now, so the Porsche's not going to quite be as good down the straight as my car, which is the Volkswagen GTI VGT, driven by myself, and PAL, of course, Porsche 911 RSR. My car's going to be better in the straight line. The Porsche's going to be better in the handling. It's also going to be better on traction. Mid-engine vehicle. Leaning towards rear-engine vehicle is that Porsche. Porsche 911 in real life, as a road car, of course, is rear-engined. So it's going to have sort of the characteristics, or the 911 RSR that's being driven by PAL is going to have closer characteristics to an RR vehicle than something like maybe the Audi that is a true MR. But of course, engine at the back, weight at the back, weight over the rear wheels, which means that the rear wheels are going to be pushed into the ground a little bit more than the front ones, so you should be able to get more traction on the exit corners. You do have to be careful of weight transfer though, as that engine, that heavy engine in the back of the car, can cause some extra momentum in the swinging around of the rear end, should it lose traction. So with that out of the way, my car now, Volkswagen GTI VGT, very good in a straight line, weird gearing, 7 gears, so you're finding yourself in a higher gear than you would be in any other car. So that's fine, but we can manage that. Good down the straight, not too bad in the corners, a little bit oversteery, but we'll manage it. the understeer situation, it's not too bad in this car actually. Very glued to the road, I feel. Right, so the combination, of course, Autodromo de Interlagos in Brazil for Daily Race C. If you didn't watch my previous video already, you'd have absolutely no idea about what this combination is this week. But it is a race that mandates 2 tyre compounds, racing soft, racing mediums. Therefore, at least 1 pit stop is mandatory. Winning strategy, faster strategy is a 1-stop, splitting your soft and medium tyres, so extending your soft as much as possible and then going onto the medium for the remainder if you're starting at the front, or the vice versa at the back. Work out how long your soft tyres last, and then do whatever remaining number of laps is on medium at the start of the race, and then go into softs. Right, so we find ourselves behind Pal. We've spent the first couple of laps trying to get a little bit closer to the back of him. You can see we've done that as we are starting lap 3 or heading into the infield section for the 3rd time. Catch up a lot of ground under braking, down into turn 8 there, so the main overtaking opportunities of this lap is turn 1, you can nip up the inside at turn 4, turn 10, turn 12, and then of course the straight. So this track is littered with overtaking opportunities. Turn 8 as well is a very good overtaking opportunity, as it opens up from turn 7 and the gap up the inside exists. So very good overtaking circuit. This of course used for Formula 1. So it'd have to be, wouldn't it? It's also a very classic style circuit. It's quite an old track, which means that it often has better overtaking opportunities. But slipstream down the straight on the outside of the Porsche, heading in towards turn 1. He has the inside. I'll try and keep him a little bit narrow, but we're moving over to the right hand side to take the racing line. The Porsche has just got a nose alongside, but I unfortunately slide a little bit deep. Porsche comes in, just comes in front of me there. I'm not quite able to get that move done, and we're back into the slipstream through turn 3, understeering a little bit, but we managed to just stop on that curb absolutely perfectly. And you can see from that attempted move by me, we've lost about 4/10 to the car behind. It was about 1.8, 1.9 seconds, and now it's 1.5. Powell gets sucked off on the edge of the curb a little bit and runs wide through turn 5. That's going to give us a better run up the hill towards turn 6, just before the 50 of course, but not quite able to get close enough there. This is what I'm talking about. See how the car drifts wide? You got all this track on the inside. That's why it's a very good overtaking opportunity, this corner here. But you can see, once again, nice and close to the back of Pal. We're both probably going to be on soft tyres at this point. I'm definitely on softs. Oh, I can say that much. I don't know about Pal. Pretty sure he'd be on softs though, having started on pole position. A little bit of a squirm out of turn 10. Easy to do as the track is sort of banked. It's very easy for the back tyres to lose traction, but heading into turn 12, nice gentle braking there actually. That was a very nice bit of braking technique by me there. You can of course keep tabs on that, because this game has integrated quite nicely telemetry into the information at the bottom of your screen. But back into the slipstream with the Porsche, he goes defensive, going to look around the outside once again. This is a move that is possible. Around the outside of turn 1, it gives you the inside for turn 2, so you can see we almost drive completely past him, but he still manages to keep a car width, or his car, just on my left hand side. I'm not quite able to sweep around the outside of turn 1 there. So another great defence by Pal. Wonderful driving, wonderful racing by the pair of us. You can see we've now, the gap to Tom behind, I think he's driving the Alfa Romeo 4C, has gone down to 1.1 seconds. So we're going to have to be careful and considerate of the car behind, of course. If we fight too much, it's going to heavily invite a third car into the mix. And really we don't want that, because then the race for first and second suddenly becomes a race between first, second and third, and it gives you an opportunity, instead of finishing at worst second place, it then becomes at worst third place, and you're beginning to drop down the field. As more cars get invited into a fight as well, you exponentially lose more time as you've got more cars squabbling and going all over the place. You can also pick yourself up penalties, which we don't want, of course, in this race whatsoever. Penalty zone, it's kind of average at this track. It's halfway down the Rita Aposta, so not a massive straight. It could be a lot worse, like on the exit of this corner. Would be an absolutely momentum race killing penalty zone, but it could be a lot better, of course. But not to worry, let's get back into the slipstream of Pal. I trust that Pal's not going to do anything silly, so we're probably not going to be at great risk of penalties, thankfully. He goes defensive, he's entitled to defend his position there, and he keeps it on the left-hand side. We're going to look around the outside of turn 1. We've got the momentum around the outside. We just leave him enough room. That is a successful move. Gives us the inside for turn 2, but we get a little bit of oversteer from the transition of turn 2 into turn 3. Pal makes his way back past again. So we're still in second place, and that move there has just allowed the car of Tom behind, the Alfa Romeo, into slipstream range. You can see, look at that, 5.5 tenths behind. So we're going to have to be careful of that. Thankfully, my car's quite good in a straight line. The Alfa Romeo, if that is what he's driving, I haven't confirmed that to be fact yet. But if he is driving the Alfa Romeo, that's going to be terrible in a straight line. And given that I've got a car that's good in a straight line, plus I'll have the slipstream from Pal down the straight, probably going to be able to pull away from Tom, but it appears that we seem to have already done that a little bit through the middle sector, but it has gone back down to about 5 tenths. So I'm very close to the back of Pal there. Try and get a superior run through turn 10, through turn 11. Pal goes for the wide line in. It gets some good momentum on the exit there, and you can see beautiful line taken by Pal there. But let's see if we can just get into the slipstream, heading up the main straight for the 6th time in its full length. We're just going to keep an eye on both the gap between myself and Pal and the gap between myself and Tom. You can see that the gap to Tom is increasing as we head down the straight, and he is now out of slipstream, or just about out of slipstream. There he is, out of slipstream now. On the right-hand side, once again, of Pal. This will be the 4th time in a row. Going to be able to sweep around the outside of turn 1. We've kept it there. Now let's just keep the car under control. We just slot in ahead of Pal. Absolutely beautiful work there by the pair of us to keep that nice and clean. I immediately sort of run a little bit defensive there, just straddling the pit lane line, but we move over to the left, back over to the right. That, of course, is just on the brink of what is allowed. One movement I would consider to be move inside and then back outside. That's one movement I would consider that to be, so that's absolutely fine. Pal makes a mistake on the exit of turn 4, and he just drops out of slipstream range, 1.5 seconds behind. So obviously, having been in the lead, not having had slipstream for the entirety of the race, suddenly myself getting past him gives him slipstream, and he's obviously just misjudged his braking point, having had that extra speed down the straight. Your tyres are also dropping off quite significantly at this point, which doesn't help the case. So you have to start to brake earlier anyway, so if you miss it later, you get in your tyre stint, the consequences are going to be greater as you're going to take longer and longer to slow down. But you can see 2 seconds ahead, lap 7. So this lap, we could potentially go in for the pit stop at this lap actually. Lap 6, 7, 8 is sort of the realm, how long your soft tyres last depending on how you drive. I'm going to go for an extra lap. I felt as though the car felt quite good at this point, so I decided, let's just keep going, see what happens. Pal and Tom both go in. Soft tyres on each. So they go in on the end of lap 8. The fact that we've stayed out an extra lap gives them the opportunity for the undercut. So when I come in for my pit stop, my combined out lap in lap plus pit stop, it could be shorter, it could be longer, sorry, in terms of time, having spent this extra lap on the soft tyres compared to the other people that have gone into the pits already. If they spend a lap on really grippy tyres while I'm way ahead, having not done a pit stop but struggling on worn tyres, they're going to be catching in a gap. Then when I go into the pits, I'm going to come out behind them. That is the idea of an undercut. The sort of vice versa of it is an overcut. If you can stay out and run faster than people on harder tyres that have just pitted, you can potentially come out ahead of them. But let's see what we do. I feel as though I might be slightly faster than Pal. So having spent this extra lap, it kind of invites him back into the mix a little bit. But we'll see how that goes. You can see up ahead, we've got a back marker, but that's not really going to be a problem. I'm coming in at the end of this lap. For me, 8 laps is about the maximum. Even 7 is probably when I should have gone in. You can see the 7th lap there, a 1:33.2, which is a good 2-3 seconds off the pace. A little bit, 2.5 seconds off the pace. You can see the gap has gone down to 8.4 seconds to Pal. It was at about 9 seconds at the start of the lap. So it just goes to show I have lost time, but we're going to transition over to the medium tyres. Let's have a look and see the Volkswagen boys changing over the tyres. Thank you very much for that. No fuel to worry about in this race. The whole race you use just over half a tank. You of course have a full tank at the start of the race, so that fuel is no worries at all. Rev the nuts out of the car. Although this particular car you do want a short shift. You don't want to you don't want to over rev this car. You won't get the best speed down the straight. So you can see Pal97 has just come out behind me, and we're kind of back as we were a little bit. He has gained, because if you remember, he lost a little bit of time when I overtook him. He was 2 seconds behind as he went into the pit, sorry, and he came out pretty much dead in line with me, and he actually gets an overtake done there. So now the dynamic has gone back to what it was originally. However, we now have 1 lap fresher tyres. So Pal, of course, went in at the end of lap 7 for medium tyres. I've got into the end of lap 8. That means through this entire second stint, I'm going to have 1 lap newer tyres for every single second of this race. I've got newer tyres. So let's see if that can translate into an overtake and perhaps even drive away from him. My car was also top of the leaderboard at the time of this race, so perhaps this car is better suited to Interlagos compared to the Porsche, although they should be fairly similar, to be honest, actually, just because they use this as the balance of performance circuit, or have used it at least in the past. But we know we can do this turn 1 move, or technically turn 1, 2, 3 it takes to complete the move. Slipstream, down the main straight. He goes defensive, we know that, so we're going to go to the right and try and sweep around the outside of turn 1. You can see how close we get side by side through turn 1. Less grip this time, more sliding, but you can see there, we just leave him enough room there, and he has to fall in behind. So that move, lovely. We've got that done once again. So we're now just going to have to watch the gap between myself and Pal. We're going to have to just focus on the braking points, focus on the acceleration points, keeping control of this car, which can be quite tough given that it is quite oversteery, but as long as we meet our marks, don't make a mistake, don't run wide, don't crash, of course, we're probably, you know, it's quite difficult to get past in the best of times, but the Porsche now does have the slipstream down the big, long straight here at Interlagos. So, that dynamic has just changed. So now that we're out in front, an interesting thing to look at is actually how the gap between myself and Pal fluctuates. Given that we're in different cars, of course being different drivers obviously, it's interesting to see where each other is strong and where we're weak. So coming through turn 10, we're stronger on the exit there. If you had a look down on the radar just on the apex of the corner, Pal takes an earlier apex than me. I like to go for a late apex and punch it out of the corner. That's really what I enjoy doing, so that's what I decide to do for turn 10, and it seems to work out. But heading up the main straight, the gap is just sort of hovering at about 5.5 tenths. So Pal, he's not quite taking the slipstream actually. He wasn't fully he wasn't fully following my tyre tracks down the straight, which is crucial if you want maximum slipstream. But as we head through turn 3, the gap is just closing, so the Porsche are a little bit more planted heading through set S, although on the exit I do gain. So obviously, as this car gets its power down, it is quite a rocket down the line, although down a straight, sorry. But he does have slipstream heading up towards turn 4, a little bit wide. There's a little bit of an oversteer moment there. We're just going to have to be careful about that, as to not make a mistake. Obviously 5 tenths behind is in prime position to capitalise on any mistake I might make, which includes a penalty, so that's something I'm going to have to watch out for. Main penalty pinch points at this track, say that 5 times fast, is turn 2, the second part, the right hand portion of centre S, you cut quite a lot. Turn 8 is you can cut quite a lot as well, and the sort of exit of turn 7 into the braking zone of turn 8 as well. If you run too wide, you get yourself a penalty. Also, another weird penalty point, halfway up the main straight, if you cut the pit lane line in a certain way, you can get yourself a cut track penalty. We're about to drive past it, so we can have a look and see exactly what I'm talking about. If you head over there, see where that green line is? If you head sort of on the inside of that, that counts as off track, and it considers you cutting a corner. I guess it's technically turn 15 of the track, so I can kind of understand how that might happen. But yeah, that's a penalty pinch point. And of course, even something as little as half a second could just put Pal close enough in order to go for a move maybe into turn 8 or something. So we really have to focus on not getting a penalty, obviously. While we've been talking there, Pal has dropped out of the slipstream, so that's interesting. That's interesting and unfortunate for Pal, fortunate for us. we don't have to quite worry about PAL as much anymore. 1.2 seconds is quite far back. It of course is not, does not put us in a position that is immune to penalties. Of course, maybe it's 1 second penalty now might be enough for PAL to make his way past. So we're just going to have to not do that, just get the power down nicely, heading up the hill. We don't, also another thing, of course, if you run wide and get all 4 tyres on the grass or off the track, the car becomes basically uncontrollable for several corners afterwards, so that can easily lose you a second. But heading through this lap, I think at this point, the tyres for PAL have dropped off quite a bit. I've been looking after my tyres throughout this stint quite well, actually. You can see we're, 1, 2, 3, 4, heading on to this is the 5th lap. It's going to be 6 laps after this, after we cross the line, or at the end of the race, sorry, it'll be a 6-lap stint. On mediums, you can see we've only got tiny little slivers of red on the tyre wear indicators on the bottom left of your screen there, which just goes to show that once I'm out in clear air, I can drive quite consistently. So points for saving tyres as well. Don't turn too much, don't brake too hard, and gear changes can also add to tyre wear a little bit, because, you know, of course, when you've got traction control on and you change gear, it lights up a little bit as you change it through each gear, so that of course indicates sort of a force being applied to the tyres, which of course will add tyre wear. So limit your gear changes, limit the understeer. A good way to monitor how much you're turning is looking at the little red dot on the bottom. I discussed briefly before that it's convenient that there's a lot of telemetry into the sort of heads-up display in this game. You have your throttle trace, your brake trace, your steering angle, all in, a little neat package with your speedo, your rev gauge, all the information you might need, your fuel, your tyres, it's all down there. So a good way to avoid a lot of understeer is to not steer past where the red dot reaches the end of the rev gauge, because when it reaches the end you can turn the wheel more, but the tyres just increase angle, increase slip angle, and just start understeering so much. But heading out of the final corner, up the main straight for the last time, 2.4 seconds ahead of PAL. That's a sensational victory, that. Absolutely, I'm absolutely ecstatic with that victory. That's a very good race there. Very good race with PAL as well. I've said it plenty of times, I'm going to say it again, he's a pleasure to race against. I just know that when PAL's there, we're going to have an excellent race, and that is honestly what happened here. So for those that didn't see the previous video, absolute penalty fest, so it's nice to sort of round out the week of the race with a race like that. Just a beautiful, clean race. We had the fastest lap in there as well. Beautiful performance by myself. The Volkswagen, yeah, it's a decent car actually, so maybe I'll see myself using that a bit more. But that's it for this one. Do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, constructive criticism as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.